Today is November the 7th of 2018, and as I had said in my last few videos that we have been going through on Hydra, serpents, dragons, reptiles, I wanted to present some of the photographs of the different fossils that I have found here on our property in Northeast Texas, which is right up in here, and show some of the countryside, the hillsides that we live on, and showing the different layers of the different clays and all the different rocks and things that are here to hopefully present a better understanding of what we see when we see the different clays or the different soils along with the different rocks. And as we can see here on this map, we have the mountain range of the Rocky Mountains and all the other different little mountain ranges and all that through here, and then we have the East Coast with the Appalachians, and then you can see the different topography. We have the Great Plains, which is this lighter green, and then we're going to get into these coastal plains, and it's usually a darker green. Now this is amazing. It's all in green, but this is not a realistic picture of what the United States looks like. But I wanted to also point out before we're going to go look at a different photograph, but I wanted to show right in here, it's calling this a lowland, even though our property sits on one of the tallest hills in our county. We're still considered to be in a lowland. And I think that's why we find so many of these fossil remains is on top of this hill. It's iron ore, and it's in layers of different clays. But if you think about a big flood of water, and you think about all the many dead animals that's in that water, along with all the different debris and all that kind of stuff, and if it's rising up this way and then the water starts to recede, then it's going to start clumping up and forming layers. And I think that's what we see in today's time. We see with our our mountain ranges and our hills. These were organic creatures at one time, and they were caught up in a flood of water, and then they were covered over with mud and debris at some point, and then over thousands of years, they have either fossilized or mineralized in some form, depending on the heat and the climate, and whether it's in a dry location or a wet location, and depending on how much rain each area gets, erosion. There's many factors that would have to be calculated into this scenario. Let's look at this other map and see, this is a little better. We can kind of get a better discernment on this because we have the different colors. We have the green coastal plains through here. And then we have plains, just, the Great Plains. And then we're going to get into all of this yellow, orangey red mountain ranges and stuff. And you can see the different colors as they, progress out. We go from this darker green into various shades of green, then the yellows, and then the white, and then the oranges start popping up. And then we get into this dark red, even a blood red. And it's not showing it on here, but there's also black or blues. There's going to be different colors of blues all through here too. And when I say this is in a bloody state, I don't know how you want to put it, because it's like an open wound. It's like you fell down and you scratched your knee or something, and it's like it's like a rash, a bloody rash. That is what this all looks like to me. And when we look at the different layers of soil, which we're going to go back to our little location right here. I'm going to zoom in. There, that's a little better. We're right up in here in this map. And as you can see, we've got all these different little side rivers that come up off of the Red River, and little tributary creeks and rivers and what have you, and there's lots of hills and trees all through here. Now when we start getting closer to Dallas and going up this way, it's becoming flatter. There's not as many trees, especially when we get up in here into the Panhandle. But look at the different colors of the soil as we move going west, and then into some of this red. Because when I see this red, it's almost like, it's like I said earlier, it's like an open wound. It's bloody looking, it's raw, and this leads me to believe that there is something really big laying here somewhere along this way. And then we're seeing the signs of decay. Erosion, decay, it's the same, in my opinion. Maybe in this photograph it'll make it easier, but consider the mountains being the top part of some giant creature. This would be like the height of it. And then you start seeing the different layers as they get little crevices in it, or they get a lot of rain, and you're going to start seeing some of these layers break down, and then you're going to see these colors, these different layers of clay or flesh. It's organic, but it's not in a wet, what you would call a wet state, because it's no longer alive. But when that rain hits it, it's like it starts washing it down, and you can start seeing the different layers and colors. Now we live on what would be considered like a hill, so this is the example for us, is something like this. And then you can see the different layers, how it kind of forms out. This runs down into here, and then this is running off, and then you have the plateaus, and then anyway it just kind of runs out, and then it picks up in the creeks, and it just keeps going until it runs back into the larger body of water. And as it runs this way, it's carrying all these minerals that most life forms have in order to survive. But it has all of these minerals in it that's washed back down, and then it goes back into the water, and then it recycles. And then of course, going along these journeys, the bulk of it's going to be filtered, you know, through all these different sands and things. In this photo is various shades of kaolin clay. Our Heavenly Father said that He's the potter and we're the clay. Each creature on earth, every living thing, is created by our Heavenly Father, and we're all made from this flesh body. It's like a clay pot, and it's made up of these different colors of clay. Each part, you know, if you want to really kind of think about it, it's on a cellular level. But anyway, this just gives us an idea. We really shouldn't have any race issues because we're all made from clay. There's just various shades of clay that are out there, you know, for humankind. We're all made from clay. And as our Heavenly Father said in Genesis 1, it was very good. This is in the 6th day when He made all the different races. Let me begin with this particular rock. This is where I used to park my horse trailer. Great place to park it. It keeps it up out of the mud, dirt, and everything. But as you can see, this is a really huge chunk of rock, and it's in sections. It's just like a puzzle. It's got like a little circular here. But you can see all these little stones out here on the side, along with this red dirt, red clay. A lot of it's mixed with iron ore. This photo, it just shows going through the one gate, going to the north, and you can kind of see all the different rocks. You can see some of the grass. You can see where it's beginning to erode. We're getting erosion up through here. We had this bad drought, and it really took out a lot of grass. And it's exposed a lot of different rocks, especially when we start getting like 5 and 6 inches of rain. It doesn't take long to dissolve a lot of this sand. As you can see in this photo, we just had some rain, and this is what has been exposed from this last rainstorm. You can see these rocks. It looks like iron ore. They're tucked in there together. The sand that was around it is coming loose. It's being eroded away, and it's exposing these top bones right here, or top rocks, whatever you want to call them. I call them, they're part of some creature. It's washing out from around them and exposing the part that's been preserved. Here's another example. We've got some weeds and grass and stuff up here. This has dropped a couple of inches since that last rain, and it's exposing some of these different layers. It's eroding underneath the grass, and you see this light tan looking sandstone. This was on top of one of these bigger pieces here. It's just eroding away. As the water hits it, it starts crumbling and flaking off. This is another prime example of what I've been talking about. To find a big rock just exposed from underneath from this hill. This has dropped several feet since we bought this property, as you can see. And these layers are just washing away. And as this sand gets washed away in the rain, it exposes these rocks. And you can look at the design on the back of this rock. This was flush at one point, and it's been washed off, and it's down here. It's kind of floating away with the rainwater. But you can see all these different larger bones exposing something here in this hill. Now, this is a prime example of how much erosion we're starting to get. This right here was some kind of a creature, and it went all the way across. Well, since we've been having all this rain, it's just been pouring down, and it's formed like a little valley right in between these rocks. It found a little hole or something, crevice, and it's just poured down through there, and it has split these rocks, and leaving half of this creature on this side and half on that side. You can see the different color of layers. You can still see some of that lighter sandstone on top of this darker red, or the iron ore. This is a closer view. You can see this deep red right here. Looks bloody. This bloody red layer of clay right here. And then you can also see how it's been washed away right here. I thought this was an interesting photograph right here. If I was to remove this leaf, would you be able to tell that this is not but maybe 2 feet wide? It'd be hard to tell. You look at this hardened section right here. This is still nice and hard and firm, but we're getting into this lighter tannish sandstone here. This is beginning to break down, and it's flaking off. You can even see right here this bony, I guess it's like bone, that's coming out of this layer. And this green has not been there very long. This is not like an algae that just formed. This is from it being inside these layers. I think this is part of the pigmentation of whatever this creature was. And again, you can see this lighter sandstone right here. This is the part that's breaking off. It just dissolves, and it just gets washed away. Now this is that area that we were just looking at right here. But look up this hill. You can see the erosion or decay, however you want to put it. It's right here for us to observe it. But like right here, got a little bit of grass, and this part is still standing. But I mean, look at the erosion from here to there. This was kind of a rolling hill, and it has dropped a lot of dirt recently from all this rain. Now this is on my left from where we were just looking. But you can see this red popping out, this really raw looking colors coming out. This is because all this lighter sandstone has washed off the top of them. That layer has been removed by the rain, the hard rains that we've been getting. And you're going to see these stones. Let me zoom in on this. Let's start here. What you would call like the flesh that's mixed in with the different clays and whatever that did not transition over into a fossil. It's like decaying flesh, and it's just being washed or flushed away. You see some of these stones that have been left behind from this process of fossilization. All these different kind of rocks. This is not flat because this rock's been broken. It just means that this part transitioned into this rock while the other part remained flesh, and it didn't transition. This part got washed away. There's lots of different stones that pop up in these layers that hardened, and they did not get washed away in the rain. And continuing up this one little area where it's eroding so bad, you can still see some of this red. And like I say, you can see all this golden sand coming down this way. All this golden sand is coming off of this deep red. It's mixing with it's mixed with the white. I guess it's clay. I'm not sure what that's called. But anyway, it's layers that have been washed off, and it's exposing this red layer. We'll zoom in again so we can get a better look. See all these little stones. This is stuff that fossilized and is preserved or mineralized inside these layers. It came through this organic creature, whatever it was, and this is what was preserved. You see all this different white that's popping out from this rain. And again, we're seeing this green coming out. I think that's from the creature. It's not an algae that formed by being in the sun. This hasn't seen sunlight. This is all new. This just got exposed. See, there's a piece right there. Looks like it's got a green tint there, and then it's kind of a yellow tint here. This is part of the creature. Okay, now following this on up to the hill, you can see the trees. You can see this is on a hill. Once we get up this point, you see something really large right here. This is a big piece of iron ore, and it's being exposed from all this rain. It's just running down, and it's exposing it. It's just cutting into this hill. Let's zoom in on that. We'll just follow it up the hill so you can see the different layers. But all these rocks were not there before the rain. These rocks came out from between these layers. These rocks were made in this organic creature through the different stages of decay. And this is what remains. The rest of it turned to sand or clay, and it's being washed away. Horse apples everywhere from my horses. Here's another view of this big hunk of iron ore. As you can see, it's like a puzzle. It all fits in place. So this is on the inside of this creature. This is the part that transitioned into this iron ore. This looks like maybe there had been a bone right here, right in here. It's like a bone, and it's been washed away. It did not harden. It did not transition into this iron ore for some reason, and I don't know why, but I'm just, showing my observations. But here's the remnants of it. And we'll just zoom in so you can get a better look. You can see the outline. This is kind of like hollowed out, like maybe the end of a bone or something maybe was here. It could have been flesh, and this is just I don't know. But something did not transition. It didn't harden into these stones. You see all the different little rocks that was on top of this that's broke down, and it's sloughing it off when it rains. Some of it I find a lot, and it's still in a bloody state. It's still got like blood on it. Looks red. Looks like it's fresh blood. You see pieces here where it's a dark iron oxide, and then you'll see pieces of bright red on it. Or this may be clay right there. But you see pieces of it right here. Whatever this is, it just keeps going. It'll be interesting to see once the rain washes this thing on out to see what maybe it is. Okay, take you back over a little bit to the south. You see right here where one of the horses slipped in this mud. So it's pretty slippery right now. But you can see here, even it's like a puzzle. Got pieces that just fit nice and snug together, and yet it's in a form of decay, erosion. And here's one that shows a hoof print right in here. Horse stepped here, and look at this mud right here. We'll zoom in. See what I'm talking about? This is really red. It looks like fresh blood. And this is off of a hill. It's coming out of this layer. These layers right here. All these stones are just falling out from all this different clay. All these different little stones. Pieces. Right here's like a light green. All of this is part of some beast, and the top part has been washed away from the rain. These pieces of sandstone or clay or that light tan colored sand. Okay, and following the horses, I found another one. They stepped on this one almost. This is what I call the pretty rocks. These kind of stand out amongst all these others. You have these, it's almost like a reptilian skin on so many of these rocks. I mean, even the texture, it looks like lizard skin, but it's in a rock stone form, and they come in many different colors. This one's particularly green right here, but they come in all kinds of colors and shades. This has recently been washed off. Looks like maybe some kind of bones starting to appear right in here. You see the horse has done stepped on it. And then right here is an interesting piece. Can you tell what that is? I know I couldn't a couple months ago, but I can now. This is a heart. It's a fossilized heart. And it's in iron ore. Okay, I'm walking across the top of the hill. These have been exposed recently. As you can see, it's like a puzzle. They all line up, but now the sand that was covering them has been washed away, and we're starting to see these bigger rocks appear. Okay, back and back out. This is the area we were just looking at. I'm showing this area because this is where I found a fossilized brain. I'll show that probably in the next video. But found it just, hanging in the dirt right up here. And I also found the tip of I'm going to call it a beak. Like those that the Triceratops had, or a Protoceratops, or what have you. But they had this little beak. I found one, and it was stuck in the ground over here. This is just another view of that area, and this sure looks like part of a bone of some sort. You can kind of start making it out. He's popping out from the rain. And there's more here. I don't know if it's part of the same creature or if it's something else popping out. Now this photograph is really interesting because this thing is really close together. It's like showing a lot of it still intact. What it is, I don't know. I just know that this recently popped up. You see the horses are stepping on it too. This is interesting because it's showing a transition. This part's kind of a smooth, and you can see the iron ore starting to work its way on it. But this is more like a clay. Interesting. So it hasn't fully transitioned, but it's just laying there, this piece. And then you can see this little red, really red, bloody looking piece right there. And this is kind of an interesting rock here. Don't know what it is. But you can see where part of it transitioned to this stone. Obviously, this part didn't. This part stayed fleshy. It did not harden. It's been washed away. It's down in here. And then you have these different stones right here. This has got to be part of it. This part transitioned to this stone, while the other part was still fleshy in that clay, and it got washed away. From this angle, that piece looks like it may be part of a snout. Right here, looking at it going that way. Remember that little heart I showed you? That was an iron ore. This is it again. And then I want you to look up here in this left-hand corner. This is part that's been preserved. It's in this layer. You can see the green, you can see the black coming on it. It's almost like a little stripe. And then it's got this clay or something that is sloughing off. This part right here is sloughing off. This piece here, this is going to go into what I call that concrete phase. It's sloughing off the outer skin. But anyway, this heart right here, you can see the indentation. I think the lung is in the next shot. Here's his heart again. I think this may be the lung for this heart. There's a horse footprint right here, and they may have launched this over here. But then again, I don't know for sure. Sometimes this stuff just pops up, and who knows exactly where it comes from when it's out in this area. But there's that green sloughing off thing. This was an interesting piece right here. You can see the different layers coming off of it. It's really dark right through here. It's almost black. A lot of iron oxide in this right here. And this layer here is part of it. And the texture of these type of rocks, it's almost like a nail file. It's real sandy like. But you can see all these different colors. It's red. It's like bloody. It's like a bloody mess with this stuff, the way it's set up. And then this is like almost like a skin, some kind of a layer that's peeling off, sloughing off. And I flipped one of them over, and as you can see, it's got that light gray or white layer here, and it's on top of this dark red. And here you can almost, yeah, you can see right there, it looks like part of the skin, the color of whatever this was. Now we'll zoom in on this. This is hardened right there, where this is mushy looking. I'll just slide down the bottom of the page here. You can see it's got a little bit of a yellow-green tint to it. All these little pieces here. It's been sloughed off. And this is another depiction. I thought this was interesting. This is like iron ore or a hard sandstone, and it's got a hole right in the center. This right here has already transitioned. This part did not fossilize. This part is like that mushy, fleshy stuff that's been washed away. It's been eroded from the rain, and it's washing out this way. And this is what it's leaving behind, is these stones right in here. Try to get a little closer view of it right here. This is what's been left in it. Except for that part probably is one of them. It's under some kind of a weird tree or bush. and then going back, I'm kind of going back down the hill. But as I'm walking down, I can see all these different layers. The grass is ending up here, and then this is just being washed away. All the sand that was in these layers in clay, it's just been washed away, and it's exposing all these little rocks, and it's changing all these stone. It's just breaking everything up. And then right through here is where all the rain was washing out. You can see this dark red layer. This is real meaty. It's real bloody in these sections all through here where it's washing out. I'll zoom in so you can get a better look, but you can see this is real soft and mushy. All of this stuff right here is real soft, and it's just breaking off from inside this layer. See, right here it's all wet, muddy, bloody. It's in these bloody layers. And you can see this stone right here. It's kind of tan on the outside. This has got iron oxide looking, I'm going to call it blood. It's, deoxygenated blood or what have you on the inside. And it's just falling off from the rain. It's just falling down in here, and you see all these little stones just falling off that were made inside this organic creature, this fossil. But you see here where it's just broke off and fallen down from all the rain. Did not have this the week before. I mean, this is a mess. Slushy, slurpy, messy, messy mess. Ah, look at that. That blood is just, it's amazing. You see all these pieces just falling out. Now this is an interesting photograph. As you can see, it's got like this little ridge that runs right through here, and it's exposing something right here. It's like almost like a neck. You can even kind of see the outline. You still see some of the green on it, and then you can see this red. So this is totally decomposing right here, but you can see the rest of it through a closer view. This is some of that decaying flesh right here, that slushy stuff, that mix, that red clay mixed with the yellow, and it's decomposing right here. It's coming off of this area. It's exposing these layers right here of that has transitioned into a harder stone or rock. These are acorns right here, so when you see those, don't think they're something. But we can just follow this down. Looks like maybe a neck. Could be something else. Who knows yet? But now this just got exposed. This is the green tint that was in those layers. This wasn't like from being in the weather, in the sunshine. You see these stones are popping out over here. Right there is a green, more green. Totally reptile. That's all I've found out here so far. It's just nothing but lizards, snakes, and who knows what these creatures are. Now this location is one of my favorite places because I have found so many really pretty stones, rocks and stuff right in here. I don't know what this creature is, but it has put out some really pretty stones, and you can see as we get more rain, it's exposing it more and more. We'll start up here and then work our way down, but you can see right here where whatever this creature was, it's bleeding right here. It's got a bloody mess right there in this layer. But you see all the different stones that have come up out of these layers. I've found so many pretty stones, and there was a bunch more in here. I'm telling you, I have plucked it pretty good, but there's still quite a few left in here, and I expect to get more because there's still part of it exposing, coming up from the weather. Every time it rains, we get more. This piece here, I think this is part of an armor. It's like, you know, that, like on a crocodile, it's got that armor on it. These little knobby things. It even had a penny right there, looks like. Anyway, no, it's probably from one of the kids. But you can just see all the different stones that's come up out of this layer for this creature. All these different ones. A bunch of them are popping out through here. And this is still in the same area, just walking down a little ways. We'll zoom in so you can see them a little better. Because there's a lot of different things in this. It's junk right there. You find these stones a lot, and it looks like they've been broken, like this right here, or even like here, but that's not what's going on. I'm finding this constantly, where these stones, where these are smooth on this end right here, or you know, whatever, on its sides, that's the part that's sloughed off. Where you see a stone where it transitioned or mineralized, excuse me, where it mineralized, you'll see that this part was that clay, that mushy stuff, the decaying part that did not transition into the stone or the iron ore or into a rock. It got washed away. You'll see this part, whatever was, is all sand. It's already washed away down through here. I find that quite often. I kept finding all these half rocks and stuff. Couldn't figure out what the deal was, and then I started finding them where they were still attached. And then I knew. Like this stone right here. Excuse me, I am all chalked up. This has got pink in it, so that's telling me it's got a blood residue. It's got blood in it right there at that point where it transitioned. But very interesting rocks. Very interesting and unique. The colors and the different sizes and styles and pieces through here. And to know that they're all part of whatever this creature was. This looks like another piece of that outer skin, that armor. Like a bead on it. A bone or right here. Or it could be a tooth or something. Here's more of that green. This is another depiction. You can see another formation coming up out of the sand or the dirt as it's being washed away. Looks like it goes on up, but you can see the outline. It just follows this way. And here's some of that clay. It just pops up, usually in little clumps. And there's nothing on it. It's just like balls of clay. And a lot of times there's a piece. You just start sloughing it off. See a lot of clay all up in here. It's pieces that's been exposed from the rain, and it's just washing the outer flesh off. It's just washing it off, and it's just leaving the inside, the white clay. It looks really raw, like maybe some type of bone or some hunk of flesh or something there that's fossilized. And this critter here, don't know what it is. I just know it's really huge, but you can make out, you know, where some of the flesh was up in here and it's been washed away. That's why it's still red. It's still got a blood residue on it. This part here was flesh. The rain has gotten to it and it's washed it away. You see it laying out all over in here. This is going to be interesting to see what this turns out to be. If we can figure it out, I don't know. But this looks like maybe an eye socket right there. Who knows? Now, I took this picture, or a couple pictures, in the night. I knew we were fixing to get a bunch of rain, and I wanted to take some photos of some of the stuff that's been left out on the side of the house next to a water faucet. And as you can see, this has just been, there's like a valley pouring off of here now, and it's just washed all these little rocks. It just flushed them open. It's because all the dirt's been eroded away, and it's exposing all these different layers. I'm going to zoom to the back, start with this. This green piece just got exposed from the last 5 inches of rain that we had. This is green because it's green. This is the way it came up out of the ground. This is the color of whatever this creature is. And it has another piece. I think it's part of this may be the head, and the neck is down in the dirt, which I did go get those pieces out. But this was just standing up. You know, this is how I find them a lot. But you see all these different stones. This is part of it too. This is almost like I don't know if it's part of the back or a fin or what, but you can see these are some of the same stones. Here's a piece of it. It's in this greenish color. And you can see all the different stones just popping out. There's multiple creatures in here. There's some big ones. I found a bigger bone. I know it doesn't belong to that little head, if that's what that is. But there's something really big down in here too, showing with these bigger bones. This is some of that clay. You can still make the outline out. Whatever was on the outside, it's even still got a little stone on there. All of this right here, this dirt looking stuff, was surrounding this piece of clay, and when that rain hit it, it just dissolved it. Just made it slough off, and all these little stones was mineralized inside this flesh, and now it's laying to the side, which is why when you see all of this, imagine all these little stones being stuck in around this clay, and it's just formed in there. And it's just been washed off when it rains. You see all the different stones all through here. This looks like a piece of armor right here, or that outer shell, whatever you want to call it. And it just goes on and on. This is just on one side of the house. I wanted to take you back up to the top of that photograph where you can kind of see up in here. But I mean, this could either be a finger or a head of something. I find a lot of snouts. This looks like a snout here, as does this and this, and maybe even that. I find a lot of those. This right here looks like this piece of iron ore, but it looks like it's got nostrils right here, and it also looks like it has a mouth. Now when I flip this thing over, it's kind of hollowed out on the back side. This transition to the iron ore, whatever part this is, if it's not the head, it's something else, but the other part didn't. The other part is it's this red, mushy, fleshy stuff. And then right here, here's another piece of clay. I think this was a snake head. It has two eyes right there, and looks like it has a mouth, but this is just the head. The rest of it's been, sloughed off. This is on the back side of that iron ore piece that I was just pointing out. But you can make out it's got design on the back of it. And this is where I picked it up at, right here. I think this root may have aided the erosion from around the back of it. but this is where it was laying. And you can see these stones right here around it. I think these belong to the bigger creature with the bigger bones that I found in this area. But you can see this green, it's like flakes of, like a sandstone, like flakes of green, like flesh, but it's not flesh, it's in a dry state. Now this is an interesting piece here. I'm looking forward to the rain to wash it out to see what it is. I think this is what the bigger bones belong to. And I'm seeing different things pop out from on the side here. See, some of it's still real red, it's real bloody looking, like this piece here. And there's a spider. Ah. Now this is some of the pictures that I took of those that I was showing you in the night, the ones we just looked at. This was that piece that was standing up. The one that I think may be a head, I'm not sure. But this piece right here is part of it. It's in the same materials. It's got the same green on the other side, or sides of it. But we have these different pieces that I pulled up out of that area. This is that iron ore piece. And I'm thinking maybe this goes with that. It may have sat on top of it at some point. It was close to it, in other words. But we can see the different stones that come up out of there. And this, I think, is a flesh. It's just like the hide on a alligator. It's that real thick hide. I think that's what these pieces are right here. And then here's a bone. Obviously, it's a bone. In my opinion, it's still got blood in it right here. It's fossilized. It's in a form of a stone, but it's got that blood residue right there. And here's those pieces again. This is what was standing up. This is what was in the ground. And this fits really good with this part. So I think this may have been part of a neck. And this could be the head. I think this is a mouth right here. But this is part of it right here with these little thin little points on it. And this is a piece of iron ore. It's got, this is hardened on the outside, and there's a substance on the inside that's hard. And then this right here is a piece of that, what I call concrete. It's where this creature is, this is like a clay, and it's getting ready to slough off, or if water gets on this for any length of time, it dissolves. If it gets pounded with a lot of water, it just dissolves into little pieces. But this is just barely had water on it, and it's at that stage where it's about to just slough off. And this looks like a piece of flesh, as well as this right here still has the color, even still has veins on it. This is just another view of this particular stone that's about to slough off, dissolve, however you want to call it. And this stone here is real hard, and then I left this part of the clay in it so you could see the difference. This one I've washed out. This one I washed off. It had clay and all that mixed in with it too, but went ahead and cleaned this up so you could see the difference. This is like really weird. It's dark green here, and then it's got light gray areas and yellows, but it's like a piece of sandpaper. It's real hard. This is a piece of flesh, in my opinion. It has this weird shape because this part transitioned and hardened while the other part was fleshy, and it eroded as soon as the rain hit it. It just flushed out all that red goo, that fleshy decaying part of the body. And let me show one more example here of the clay. This is a close-up of a piece that I found. You can see all the different layers, it's little pieces in it. It looks really strange. and it feels real weird when you pick them up. You can see the texture on it. But this has lost its outside skin. You can see the different layers. It's real dark. It's like, I mean, it totally looks like dead flesh in a point of decay. I found this piece not too long ago, and it's an amazing piece. It has the holes in it. Got like a dark red blood residue, and you can see how it's just lined up, the different colors. This is side view of it. You make out the different layers of it. It looks decayed. It looks like decayed flesh is exactly what it looks like, and that's what it is. It came out of one of these layers. They just got sloughed off. It fossilized into this, quote, stone, this rock. So think about some of the mountain ranges and consider a very, very large animal. And you think about how they're, you know, the little valleys and what have you, and the different colors. And then think about something like this on a small scale, but on a very large scale, mountain size. Here it is from the side, looking downwards. This is, it has holes in it right through here. It's like it's bleeding from this part right here. Look at all these different crevices and the different designs on the rock. Interesting. This is top view. And this is the bottom of it. And it's really dark and decaying right down through here. And I flipped it around, and you can see it a little better from all the different angles. This area is pretty flat, so this part fossilized while the other part transitioned into something else. It didn't stick together, or it sloughed off. Even looks like it's got part of this layer right here with this white. I'll zoom in so you can get a better look. Progressing forward. So if I show you a picture like this at this altitude, at this location, and you see something that looks like this, with this white, with these white layers, and you can see how it's got all this red coming off of it, and it's got this green around it on the outside layer, and it's got all these dark colors running through it and around it. You see all this stuff running off. Then it shouldn't be too hard to compare that large scale to something small like this with the different layers, or something like this. Now this has already eroded the top layer. We're already down to that tan sandstone layer, but you can see how they're very similar. And looking at what all we have seen, we've got a decaying creature laying here. It's in a state of decay, decomposing. And I'm not trying to persuade anyone to go out of what they feel comfortable with. I'm just letting you know what I have found on our iron ore hill. I have lots more to share. I'll put that in another video. Fossils I've found. You still don't believe that giants or titans existed? Well, this right here in this top left-hand corner is a perfect example. This is obviously a person that's laying here. He, she is, you know, they're in a form of looking like a heel or a stone, what we call a heel or a stone. But you know, these layers, once it gets a little crevice, it's going to start to decay at some point in here. You know, depending on the climate, the temperatures, the way it was preserved, if it was up, you know, in mud or what have you. There's so many variations on preservation of different fossils. But as we can see here, this is a really good example. It's laying here, and then as over, you know, thousands of years, it's going to start to decay. It's going to start falling. The layers are going to start falling off of it. And it's going to expose layer by layer. And we see all these different caves and stuff that people talk about. Well, you know, when you get into the internal part of these bodies, you know, that area is generally really soft, as we just saw in the video that I just presented. Those layers are soft. That red clay is got moisture in it. It's wet. It's not slushy unless it gets a lot of water on it. It's in a nice stabilized condition to cut through the different layers, make a cave or what have you. If it's big enough, I mean, my example is on a very small scale, but you think about something big like this where you could go into the mouth, say the mouth gapes open or what have you, and then you're inside the skull of it, or through the eye sockets, or, you know, that kind of stuff. It's kind of gross to talk about, but anyway, because this was a person. But these ancient creatures, these giant sea monsters, or dragons, or serpents, or giant dinosaurs, these things existed. And, I mean, they were huge. And when we think about some of this, you know, consider these different layers, how it starts sloughing off, it starts breaking down, it's decomposing. You know, 36 feet is pretty small compared to a mountain range, is what I'm saying. When it's miles and miles and miles and not just 36 feet, he's a pretty good sized guy compared to us today. But I'm talking on an extremely large scale. Like down in here, this guy, I think they're showing him to be like he's supposed to be 2 miles tall or something. Anyway, some of these different giants. But we today are very small compared to what they once were when the atmosphere was different. You know, think about God's Word when He talks about the giants in the land. So where did the giants go? They didn't just like evaporate. They're still here. It's just that mainstream science is keeping the truth hidden when it's in plain sight. Right here in Numbers 13:33, and there we saw the giants. This should be translated Nephilim. This is the fallen angels. And there we saw the fallen angels, the sons of Anak, which come of the fallen angels, or the Nephilim. These sons of Anak are descended from the fallen angels. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So compared this normal, average 6 foot tall man today, compared to 36 foot, you know, we would appear small. But this is nothing compared to those that came before the flood of Noah's time, or the creatures that came before the flood of Noah's time. Keep that in mind when you think about these hills in the great flood, and where did all them creatures go that were destroyed in the flood? And this was not millions of years ago. This has only been a few thousands of years ago. That's the key right there. This fossilization does not take millions of years, but a mere thousands of years for this transformation to take place. And I would also like to include appendix number 50 from the Companion Bible for those who might want to research this a little more in detail. From the creation of the flood, and they calculated at 4004 to 2348 BC is their time frame. I'm going to scroll this up. they have calculated the flood year of Noah, this is in Genesis 6, 7, 8, 9, to be approximately 2,348 BC. So you do the math to our current time. But right after this, 2 years, it says here, Peleg was born here. It says in Genesis 10:25, the name of the one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided. In both places the word is Peleg, to divide or cleave. Hitherto the earth had been one and undivided, and apparently surrounded by the waters. This goes back to Genesis 1. In the days of the 15th from Adam, the earth was divided. It means cloven or broken up into its present condition, or continents and islands, and intersected. Now this makes perfect sense to me, because I believe that there was this one giant landmass, and at some point it has been broken up. We hear about this great earthquake during this time. Now there's probably, without doubt, there's more meaning to this, because it's not only was the world one, as we learn in Genesis 11, they spoke one language, and I mean there's so much more to it. And then God came in to that Tower of Babel, and he confused their languages, and then he scattered them abroad. So I mean we have this unity that was built at one point, and it's been divided. Heavenly Father divided it. I think he divided the land also. And with this great earthquake, where the continents were pushed away from each other and formed basically 7 large continents. That would be that 7-headed beast that we learn in Revelation 12 and 13 that makes up that beast system. But we're talking about like heads of government or unions that form that beast system, and not a Hydra as in a reptile creature. We're talking about a one world order, a new world order. Think of those words and those that are in charge of it, because it's coming when Satan is cast out. He will unify them all in his role as the Antichrist. And also here is page 2, appendix 50, for those who may want to try to calculate this. This is going to Abraham. Has their calculations here on the side. And I want to point out here another note that they made. It says, from which Peleg derives his name, points to a violent disruption of the earth itself, a cataclysmic cleaving or dividing of the earth. Hebrews, it says, the dry. And this is an interesting word, because Christ also uses this word in the dry, talking about his body, into its present scattered condition. It says this short note in Genesis 10, verse 25 is pregnant with meaning and probably contains the key to many ethnographical problems. And it talks about when Peleg died after the flood, and it was 10 years before Noah's death and 12 years before the birth of Abraham. But hopefully this will be helpful to understand more about the timing that we live in today. It's more like 10,000 years ago, thereabouts, not millions of years ago, as so many want to say. And this is just my opinion, and I'm not sure how they calculated the time here, but I'm thinking it's more like between 10 and 15,000 years ago is when Genesis 1 verse 2 took place. So that's just my opinion, and from some of my own calculations, but it's for each of us to discern it and do the math. Plus to understand that the time for these great creatures and humans, it don't take that long to fossilize. Not millions of years, but thousands of years. Depending on the climate, depending on the temperature, depending on the soil, there's many variations. And then you have the different minerals that transition. Some do, some don't. Don't ask me. I really don't know all about the science part of it. All I know is what I see here on my heel. And my heel is telling me that these different layers are flesh. It's part of the what once was an organic creature that was alive, and now it's dead, and it's in a state of decomposing. And part of it mineralized, part of it fossilized, part of it didn't. And that's why I'm having erosion out here on my heel. I'm seeing their flesh just float away, you know, after every rainstorm. And then I see what's left behind, the different stones that are there. Here's the elements found in the human body. This is an interesting photograph right here because it's calling it the cell membrane. And think about those colors that we have just seen. So we're seeing a cellular decomposition coming out of these hills from this organic creature. And amazing enough, the chemical basis of life, living organisms are composed of about 25 chemical elements. So I'll close this video and show this graph. It's talking about the average temperature across the United States. And as we all know, it gets colder up in here than it does down here in the south. And there's some areas that get way over 100. And their temperatures stay warm pretty much year-round. Now here in our area, we can get, in the hot summer, it can be over 100 many days, a month or two. And then in average, I would say, is around 70 to 80 degrees during the summer. And then in the winter, we get maybe a few cold spells in the 20s, very rarely under 20, but sometimes it does. We don't usually get that real hard cold freeze, but it stays very humid here most of the time. So we have a different climate here than it would be out here where it's drier. So it's a lot higher heat and it's drier, and things would be preserved differently here than it would here or even up here. We have to consider the weather and the climate when we think about preservation of different fossils, you know, over these past thousands of years. That's a big variance there. And how much rain, you know, we get here compared to here. There's all these different variances that can change the conditions of the preservation and the fossilization of all these different creatures that have died in the past few thousands of years. Just something to think about. In the next video, I'd like to show a lot of the different fossils that I have found and present those. Anyway, I just wanted y'all to see where I'm coming from when I'm looking and I'm talking about Google Earth and the different locations, so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about it. It's not that I'm trying to say that I'm an expert in the field. I'm just saying that it's from my observations and what I'm seeing, and I'm showing them to you so you can understand. You decide what you want to believe. But I know that mainstream, there's something wrong with their time scale. It just doesn't fly, and I know that mainstream wants to discredit our Heavenly Father's Word and that He's the creator of all things. And we have to go back to the cellular, you know, that original cells, and then the minerals, and our Heavenly Father being the creator. He's the potter. He's the one that made all living things. So we're all organic. We all share one breath, the breath of life, and we all die, and we go through these stages of decay. The flesh body decays. So there it is. And I hope that you have found this video informative and helpful. And I hope that you will join me in the next set of videos. Hopefully it'll just be one, but as I present some of the creatures that I have found, and I will give you a sneak preview of one in particular that really kind of got me going on this search. Say hello to my little friend. This is my little alien, and there will be more in reference to this guy in the next video. God bless.